I've always been fascinated with the idea of mascots and how effective they are at selling us stuff. Ever since the first few big guys popped up like Mickey Mouse, seemingly every single company needs to have some character to associate with a brand to make them feel more familiar and trustworthy to us, either as an audience or as mere consumers in the lowly middle class. Because let's be fair here, most companies only see people as walking amounts of currency. But in saying that, it's incredibly hard to argue against their effectiveness. I mean, if I say the word Sonic, you think of a blue hedgehog for sure, but also a balding middle-aged man, a red echidna, a yellow fox with two tails, and that's at the bare minimum. In the world of gaming, there are so many attempts to make a character that could one day become as recognizable as the stoic Nord on the front of Skyrim, or Spyro the Dragon and Crash Bandicoot, two of the most recognizable things, well, to ever exist really. But such as life's cruel will, for every success story, there are more who fall into obscurity, gone from the minds of most, but never truly forgotten, especially not by me anyway, because I'll just end up remembering them on a Friday night when I'm pissed out of my mind. And Scalar is undeniably one of these stories, a little blue lizard who looks the part on the outside, but as for its contents, well, that's why I'm here to talk to you about it today. Welcome everyone to a Willkak's Guide to Scalar. Scalar is,
Run into an issue already, have we, mate?
Yes, actually, I have. You see, usually when I classify a game, it's apparent what the game is, but in this case, Scalar is in the midst of a midlife crisis because, well, while most of the game is a platformer slash beat 'em up where you hop from platform to platform looking for objectives and smacking aggressive creatures in the head, sometimes it decides it doesn't actually want to do that.
Oh, I know what you mean, mate. It's like when it randomly decides it wants to be a shoot 'em up or a racing game, right?
Right on the money there, Dave. Now don't get me wrong, it's not like I hate these shifts in when a game decides it doesn't want to do the same thing over and over again. It's just that it rather comes out of nowhere, leaving me wondering what the hell is actually going on when it happens. Kind of like this transition. After Rampage, I'm really glad to see this game has an actual storyline. Well, kind of. Main plot points are that you play as a young protester for lizard rights who for some reason is being tortured by this drill sergeant looking dude in a basement. I'm already confused, but fuck it, let's keep it rolling. So it turns out that old mate Drill the Bill Sergeant has three friends hiding behind a one-way mirror. Apparently Scalar actually knows of these three people as he accurately names all of them, and that's quite disturbing when you think about it, so I'm going to choose not to in this situation. From what I gather, one is a director, the other is a CEO of some company, and the other is a bulldozer driver. This is also disturbing because I know of quite a few directors who would also get busted for watching a minor get tortured, but this is the first woman I've heard of, so well done for breaking gender boundaries back in 2004, Scalar. Congratulations on showing us that degeneracy has no gender boundaries. Anyway, a portal opens, lizard powers, top and bottom text, and young Bobby Jenkins finds himself in another dimension where someone decided everything needs to be decorated with those tiny plastic dinosaurs found in a bucket in a corner in your local pharmacy. He meets the only friendly NPC in the game, a dude called Leon, who is definitely not his dad, and the two set off to stop the big bad guy and save the world. I know that feels like it was a bit too brief of an explanation, but that's how it felt like when I was playing, so that's how I'm sharing it with you. Now, as I mentioned previously, this game takes place in the plane of existence where everything revolves around lizards, and the environments for the most part do a really good job of selling this idea. Everything feels oversized and massive, making the small blue lizard fit right into this world where massive caterpillars crawl around giant stalks poking out from a muddy swamp. There are lots of muddy and sandy areas as well, making a really realistic environment for lizards to hang out, and little butterfly dogs. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one, but to be fair, lizards do eat bugs, so I'll give them a pass on that one, since you can just smack them in the head once and whoosh, oh, where did they go? Ooh, it's magic. Your ultimate goal that has been ripped straight out of Spyro 3 is to retrieve lizard eggs that were stolen from our world to stop the evil Luger. Yes, that is his name, and I'm very confused by it. Luger. Come on, guys. Think of something like anything better than that. Call him fucking Dave. He's a criminal. Anyway, you gotta stop the evil Luger from turning them into an admittedly very small army of mutants to invade our reality. And when I say small, I'm meaning there's only 20 of these fuckers, since we already killed the 21st one. But instead of starting a genocide, which would have been my go-to, I might say, and killing all of the big lizards, we instead have to retrieve the eggs before they go a mutant, because save the lizards, am I right? There are usually 2 eggs per level, and they require you to lay out every enemy in your way in these little cage matches and perform basic platforming. That is, I mean, it's just as every other platformer you've probably played, no doubt, so, I mean, there's not really much for me to talk about. It's just, it doesn't mean the platforming is bad, it's just too normal really to dig deeper into. What I can and will dig deeper into is Scalar's transforming abilities. You see, on certain levels there are indigenous creatures that when enough are killed, grant you the power to transform into them. There are 5 of these species in total, each with their own unique moves and uses, even outside of combat. First of which is the Bakudan Battle Brawler, which can generate bombs from somewhere, maybe it's arse, I'm not too sure, that can be either placed in front of you or rolled along the ground to hit something further away. You can also manually detonate them, or you could be lazy and wait for them to blow up automatically when they either hit someone in the shins or a certain amount of time has passed. I personally subscribe to the shin kicking method. Now this may seem like a luxury because you can take out enemies with about as much effort as bowling and Wii Sports, but it's actually a necessity as there are some enemies that have to be killed with a bomb and pylons that must be broken in the same way in order to progress. Next we have the Kronk. I love that name. It's a ball, it rolls fast and have spikes. The Kronk for me personally is a bit disappointing because when you see them in the wild they will exit their ball form, and even in the bottom of your screen it just looks like you can exit ball form, but no, you're forever stuck as a spherical object. And let me tell you something in confidence, it ain't the only fucking blue spherical object after finding that out. And if you don't understand what I'm saying, hey, either you know or you don't, it's just that simple, kid. Next we have my favourite form, the Doozum, found in the level called Doozum, which seems appropriate. Now something to note about this winged fiend is unlike all the other poor creatures that you slaughtered their entire lineage to gain the form, there is only one Doozum that can actually be killed, which raises a few questions for me, chiefly among which is, hold up, are they endangered? Are we seriously going to make an species extinct just for one fucking egg? Then again, Spyro did probably kill the last two eastern dragons in the entirety of the dragon world, so you know what, you gotta pass for that one, Scalar. But I think we all learned something here today. Spyro is a racist. Speaking of unjustified murder, if this is true that this is the last Doozum in the area, assuming that's the case, wouldn't it be against Bobby's character to kill something like that, or is he just, you know, like every other person who constantly preaches about something that we all know is bad? He only gives a fuck when people are watching. Well, sucks to be you, Mr. Jenkins, because I saw everything, and guess what? I made you do it. And if you assume I'll make you do it again if we lose the fight, oh, you're damn fucking right, Sonny. You're killing that thing and I am learning how to fly. Anyways, the Doozum is found towards the end of a series of platforming challenges that make up the entire level, and it has its own boss fight, which is very unreadable and bullshit, but that's not the point here. After slaying the majestic sky dolphin, you can then fly all over the level, which I need not tell you is extremely rewarding, since I don't even need to go through that entire gauntlet to get back up to the top of the level. Not that I would though, because once you do 2 trials, which once again, were ripped straight out of fucking Spyro, you get the only egg on this level, so you don't even need to come back ever again. And the Doozum is native here, so it does not spawn anywhere else. And in saying that, it actually brings up something I should mention. You can only transform into creatures that spawn on the specific planet that you can kill them, or other ones where it is allowed. You don't get to just swap between forms willy-nilly, otherwise this game might have some intricate details and hidden locations you could reach. And okay, I'll be actually fair for a minute, it would be very unfair in a platformer if you could just fly over all the obstacles right from the beginning. Okay, this is dragging on a bit. The last two are the Fruzzed and the Swoom. The Fruzzed, which I lovingly called the Fuzzed when I was a child because I didn't see the R in its name because I'm an idiot and couldn't read, is found on the level Iridium. And it is essentially a long-range transformation that allows you to enter aim mode to shoot at targets to make platforms appear, or just shoot any dickhead who stands in your way, really. The projectiles function similarly to something like the Bakudan's bomb, with being able to break spiky pods that don't let you usually break them as normal Scalar, but you can't blow up metal containers as you could with the Bakudan's bomb, because I'm guessing you have less firepower. But that's fine, because I guess you can't have it all. In any case, really, I'd rather have to do some. And the last, and certainly the least, is the Swoom. It really isn't worth talking about, as it just makes you able to swim, which is also only useful on like one level. I know the Doozum's only useful on one level, but it is extremely useful on that level, and not just able to get you to the end because you couldn't reach it otherwise. And apart from that, it sucks. Don't use it. Unless you like to slide around like a penguin, which is actually pretty fun, I'll admit, and because I need to say something that really doesn't fit in anywhere else, Scalar can also camouflage himself to sneak past certain enemies. That's it, I just need to sneak that in somewhere. To finish up talking about the game world, there is also quite a lot of predation in this game. Alright, don't get your pitchforks out, that's not the one I'm talking about. To make sure everyone knows what I'm saying, and I'm not talking about the not good type of predation here, let's have a quick biology lesson, shall we? Guess what, you don't have a choice in the matter, biology is a good science. And if you have a problem with that, then you can just go and suck my Punnett square. In any given environment, there are almost always predators, and this game actually has predators in it. And I'm not talking about old Hillary Weinstein over there. They evolved specifically for the purpose of feeding on the creatures that live in this environment. A good example of that is that almost every creature you can turn into in this game has a relationship with another one. This big heap of flesh, for example, will try to eat you regardless of what form you're in, but if you're a Bakudan, you can roll your ball into its mouth to kill it, but the reason it attacks you in the first place is because it feeds on the little teddy fellas. So they somehow evolved bombs so that they could counter its long tongue that comes out to grab them. As well as this, you also have the Kronk scaring away these little mushroom dudes so much that they would rather commit suicide than stand next to it. On top of this, the Doozum most likely feeds on these little butterfly fellas that shoot at you while you fly around. But these big guys on the other hand have actually evolved to counter the Doozum, who can only shoot in a straight line, by using the bulbs on its tail as mines to deter it from following it. I should mention that most of these don't work, as I still kill them regardless of these examples of adaptive radiation, but hey, at least they made an effort, so good on them I guess. Let's talk about combat. If I had to sum up Scalar's moveset, I would say it's pretty solid, but then again the word inconsistent would work just as well, but that's me getting ahead of myself. Scalar has a basic 3-hit combo that gets stronger with each successive hit, a tongue attack that can one-shot smaller enemies and stun some others, but the rules are pretty vague with that, so use it at your own risk on stronger people, that can also be used while climbing. But by far his ace in the hole is an electric bomb special attack that charges while you grind on the vines scattered around the level, that has 3 charges by default but can be upgraded to a maximum of 6, that is essentially a screen nuke. But this attack will be less effective the larger the enemy, cause the big guys don't seem to care about the 40,000 volts that just been administered into their bloodstream without their consent. These moves don't seem like much, but when working as intended, really it's all you need. Punch the stronger dudes, give the little fellas a good licking, and bomb the shit out of stuff you can't be asked to deal with. With that being said, however, it's not always that simple. You see, most enemies have a limit on how many times you can actually get hits in before turning invulnerable for a couple of seconds to stop them from just being stun locked into a corner, so you can't just spam them into an early grave instead of actually having to think about what you should hit them with and when. You may be wondering about the alternate forms and what they're like to fight with, and the answer is simple. If you can use it, you really shouldn't, and if you would use it, you can't. The Doozum is obviously a great choice for killing stuff because you could just park yourself 5 meters above your target and simply let loose a barrage of homing missiles on the poor group of puppies beneath you. All the others are simply outclassed in most situations. But for anyone who thinks to prove me wrong, I'm just going to give you the brief outline of why I think none of them should be used in combat. The Bakudan is too slow to generate another bomb when smaller groups of enemies are rushing you, and if you're thinking what about the big enemies, well, sometimes their hitboxes are a bit too big, and the blast radius on the bomb can also be a bit too big, and when you get hit with your own bomb, it doesn't hurt you, but it can stun you, meaning you don't generate your bomb for that much longer, which can lead to your demise. The Swoon is pointless, as I've already mentioned, and the Fruited is alright if it lands its shot, but never, and I mean never, try to use its tailspin. Not unless you want to see something that can be categorized as utterly and completely inept in every single way. And if you start thinking, well, we should just use the Doozum then, do you remember that thing I said at the beginning? If you can use it, you shouldn't, and if you would use it, you can't. The Doozum you can't turn into a Doozum in the middle of these little combat arenas. Which I hate, because otherwise I'd just fly away, to be honest. And this is a good time to mention that hitboxes can be a bit fucky at times. Example of this are attacks not hitting when they really should, and you really need them to, but they decide not to anyway. Your tongue either not hitting or hitting multiple enemies at once. I didn't think Scalar was a two-headed snake, but I guess we're here now. There are also a few smaller things I could mention, but really the combat is smooth enough for the most part while it's working as intended. My by far biggest complaint about this game has to be the camera. Now in most games the camera is either following you constantly or fused into the eyes of whoever you happen to be playing as, but in Scalar the camera can get really funky for no apparent reason. This area on Iridium is by far the worst for this. I mean, just fucking look at this. This is me trying my damnedest to move the thing, and it's stuck in place like a kid on photo day that got an erection while he was sitting in the chair. He ain't moving for nothing. It's stuck like shit to a blanket, as my dad would say. I think that just about wraps up everything I was wanting to talk to you about with this game. There's a lot more I could say, quite a lot more, but honestly talking about the story is tedious due to how simple it is. I'm pretty sure the version you make up in your head would be a lot better than what they've got here. And I've said all that I need to at this point, and everything else would just be me repeating myself. So what's the takeaway from this whole video? Well, there really isn't some sort of message I'm trying to get across. I'm literally just talking about a game. But actually, I did forget one thing I want to talk about. Look in the top right corner of the screen. Can you see it? Let's look a bit closer. Do you see this? They forgot to take the transparent background off of 2 of the spheres they still have a fucking transparent background on them, and it's fucking hilarious that they released the game and didn't actually notice that. Because it seems the type of thing you wouldn't notice until you saw it and you're like, oh shit, I'm getting fired for this. I'm just stalling at this point. You see, I had a whole spiel planned for the end of this video where I was going to talk about, it doesn't matter what it looks like at the beginning, what it looks like at the end, all that matters is what you think about it, because, mascots and all that, I'm trying to tie it back to that, but I think, I don't think there is a way to relate it back to each other, but basically, the point is, Sonic may be recognizable, but doesn't mean his games are fucking good. Leg.